You walk into a room where everything was purchased last season. The chairs, the art, the books no one has read. Everything gleams with the desperate shine of the recently acquired. This is not wealth. This is anxiety made visible. True collectors understand something the newly rich do not. Patina cannot be purchased. It must be earned through time, through use, through the silent accumulation of years. A Georgian desk bears the weight of correspondence that shaped nations. A first edition carries the fingerprints of minds that changed civilization. These objects hold memory in their grain. The wealthiest families rarely redecorate. They inherit, they curate, they remove. There is a reason auction houses exist. They are not merely marketplaces. They are temples where the ephemeral dreams of the new are sacrificed to the enduring presence of the old. Every painting that crosses the block at Christie's has outlived a dozen fortunes. It will outlive a dozen more. Consider the psychology at work. The hunger for novelty is a hunger for validation. It announces, I have arrived, I can afford what others cannot. But true power announces nothing. It simply exists, accumulated across generations, silent and absolute. What does your newest purchase reveal about what you're still trying to prove? The truly wealthy build once. They do not renovate with the seasons. They do not follow trends in stone and steel. Blenheim Palace was completed in 1722. Its owners have never wondered if the facade is still relevant. The question itself would be absurd. Architecture of this caliber transcends fashion because it was never fashionable to begin with. It was simply perfect, timeless, inevitable. Modern construction operates on a different principle: planned obsolescence dressed as innovation. Glass towers age poorly, contemporary materials fail. The aesthetic language of now becomes the embarrassment of then within a decade. Photographs from 2010 already look quaint. Brutalist experiments from the 1970s required demolition. But walk through the 16th century corridors of a Venetian palazzo. The proportions remain flawless. The light still falls correctly. The stones have only grown more beautiful with age. This is not accident. This is intention meeting execution at the highest level. Families who commission such spaces understand they are building for descendants they will never meet. The great estates of Europe were designed with 300-year horizons. The gardens were planted for grandchildren not yet conceived. Every decision accounted for centuries, not quarters. There exists a particular kind of confidence required to build without concern for resale value or market trends. It is the confidence that comes from not needing to sell, ever. When was the last time you made a decision designed to outlast you? Addition is easy. Subtraction requires judgment. Any person with access to capital can acquire. The skill lies in refusal. The greatest private collections are notable not for what they contain, but for what they exclude. When a Rothschild adds a painting, 50 others were considered and rejected. The determination is not, can I afford this, but does this belong? This is connoisseurship, the ability to discern not just quality, but rightness. New collectors buy categories. Old money buys specific objects. The distinction matters. One approach fills space, the other creates meaning. Consider the psychology of the auction room. Novices bid on names. Experts bid on condition, provenance, rarity, the invisible factors that separate a good example from the definitive example. They recognize that a lesser Rembrandt is still lesser, while a masterwork by a forgotten Dutch contemporary might be incomparable. The truly sophisticated collector maintains a relationship with absence. Negative space matters. Empty walls have purpose. Not every surface requires occupation. There's a famous story about a Silicon Valley billionaire who purchased an 18th-century French chateau. Within months, he had installed smart home technology, updated the plumbing, replaced the windows with modern alternatives. He believed he was improving it. He was, in fact, destroying the very thing he had paid to own. The error was categorical. He approached permanence as if it were a problem requiring his solution. It was not. It had already been solved, perfectly, 250 years prior. Do you possess your objects, or do they possess the judgment you lack? Advertising is confession. It confesses that you need others to know, that the object itself is insufficient, that your confidence requires external validation. The most valuable possessions are never photographed for social media. They exist in private. They are enjoyed in silence. Their worth is inherent, not derived from the envy they might generate. This is a difficult concept for the contemporary mind. We have been trained to believe that experience requires documentation, that ownership without announcement is somehow incomplete. But consider what this reveals. The need to broadcast is the need to be seen as worthy. True worthiness requires no audience. Old money families own Vermeers the public has never viewed. They possess first folios that will never be exhibited. They wear watches inherited from great-grandfathers, pieces worth millions, but appearing to the undiscerning eye simply worn and unremarkable. There is tremendous power in knowing what others do not know you know. The finest wine cellars in the world contain bottles that will never be photographed. The rarest books remain in private libraries, inaccessible to scholars. The most significant jewelry is worn once at weddings or state functions, then returned to vaults for another generation. This is not hoarding. This is the understanding that some things are diminished by sharing. When a painting hangs in a museum, it belongs to everyone, which means it belongs to no one. When it hangs in your home, it is yours alone. The experience is private, unmediated, pure. The question is not whether others admire your taste. The question is whether you have taste to admire. If no one ever knew what you owned, would you still own it? New fortunes decay, old fortunes compound. This is not about money alone. It is about infrastructure, about systems built to outlast individual lives. Tech billionaires make and lose fortunes within decades. Their wealth is spectacular but fragile, tied to market valuations and public sentiment. When the company falters, the fortune evaporates. But families who have held land for 4 centuries understand a different model. They do not own assets. They are custodians of legacy. The estate does not belong to them. They belong to it. This psychological reframing changes everything. Decisions are made not for personal gain, but for institutional preservation. The forest is not harvested for quick profit. It is managed for sustainable yield across generations. The art collection is not sold to fund lifestyle. It is maintained as cultural capital, appreciating slowly, transferred intact. There is a profound conservatism to this approach, not political conservatism, but philosophical. The belief that what has endured has value precisely because it has endured. New money asks, what can this do for me now? Old money asks, what will this mean in 2124? The tension between these worldviews defines the relationship between wealth and taste. One is extraction, the other is stewardship. Consider the great estates bankrupted by modernity. Death taxes, maintenance costs, the sheer expense of preserving what was never meant to be preserved by a single generation. Many have been lost, converted to hotels, sold to institutions, divided among heirs who lacked the vision to maintain unity. But those that survive do so because someone understood the mathematics of permanence, that certain things once lost can never be recovered, that the price of preservation is always less than the cost of replacement. Are you building wealth or are you building dynasty? price and value are not the same. The market can tell you what an object costs. It cannot tell you what it is worth. A 2024 hypercar depreciates the moment it is titled. A 1961 Ferrari 250 GT appreciates with every passing year. Both are beautiful, both are fast, only one is increasingly irreplaceable. This is the fundamental asymmetry. New items exist in competitive markets. Supply can expand, manufacturers can produce more. The latest model is always coming. But supply of the old only contracts. Every fire, every flood, every careless air reduces what remains. Scarcity is not manufactured, it is inevitable. Sophisticated buyers understand this calculation. They recognize that certain windows close permanently. The opportunity to acquire a complete set of first edition Audubon prints existed for perhaps 50 years. Then the sets were institutionalized or broken up or destroyed. The window closed, it will never reopen. The wealthiest are often described as patient. This is inaccurate. They are decisive within their timeline. When an object of permanent value becomes available, they act immediately and without hesitation. When the market offers the ephemeral and the trendy, they wait, forever if necessary. There is also the question of dignity. An object that has survived 2 centuries has proven itself. It has been tested by time and found worthy of preservation. A brand new luxury item has proven only that it can be manufactured and marketed. The proof of its worth still lies ahead. This is why auction results for contemporary art are fundamentally different from those of old masters. Contemporary work sells on speculation and fashion. Historical work sells on established, immutable achievement. One is investment, the other is collecting. Can you distinguish between what is expensive and what is invaluable? In the end, objects outlive us all. This is the truth that separates collectors from consumers. Consumers own things for their own use. Collectors hold things in trust for those who come after. Your chair was made in 1780. You will use it for perhaps 40 years. Then it will belong to someone else, and someone else after that. Your brief tenure is nothing against its history. You are not its owner, you are its custodian. This realization is either humbling or liberating, depending on your psychology. If you need permanence through possession, it is devastating, because you possess nothing permanently. But if you find meaning in connection to continuity, it is profound. You are part of a chain. The object connects you backward to those who came before and forward to those who will follow. You are not the point, you are a link. The wealthiest families understand this instinctively. They do not ask what an object does for them. They ask what they owe to it, what care it requires, what preservation demands, what legacy commands. New is rarely better because new has not yet proven anything. It has not survived. It has not endured. It exists in potential only. Old has already succeeded. It has outlasted fashion, outlasted its makers, outlasted everyone who once called it new. The ultimate luxury is not what you can afford to buy. It is what you are worthy to inherit.